Good evening, everyone. I will call to order the July meeting of the Plan Commission. I'd like to start with a couple of announcements before we do roll call. The first announcement tonight is we will have 2 meetings back to back with a short recess in between if needed. The first meeting will be our regularly scheduled hearing, which will take public comment in. The second meeting will be our normally scheduled administrative meeting that normally occurs on the first Tuesday of every month. We are holding that tonight after the initial meeting. So there is no public comment during that period, even though the public is welcome to attend and listen in if they're interested. So the second announcement I'd like to make is that if you're here for REZ-24-4, the Thomas HP overlay rezone, that has been continued by staff and will not be heard tonight. The second announcement is if you're here for, or third announcement, if you're here for PUO-24-2, the Cutright Boat Storage PUD on South State Road 446, that has been continued by the petitioner, so it will not be heard tonight as well. So Jackie, to get us started, would you call the roll, please?
Sure. Margaret Clements. Tron Enright Randolph.
Here, I also had a clarifying question. The packet with part 1 and part 2, does that cover everything we're going over today? There wasn't a separate administrative
Correct.
packet. Okay, just want to make sure I didn't miss something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Scott. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Jackie. Part 1 will be covered during the public hearing. Part 2 will be covered during the administrative
Perfect.
session.
Thank you so
Okay,
much.
sorry, Jackie.
Scott Ferris.
Here.
Jeff Morse.
Here.
Cheryl Munson.
Here.
Edward Ullman. Dee Owens.
Here.
Jerry Pittsford.
Here.
Julie Thomas. Here. Chris Cockrum. Okay, so we have 7 members in attendance, 6 in person, and a quorum.
Thank you, Jackie. Moving on, would you please introduce the evidence for tonight?
Sure, I'd like to introduce the following items into the evidence. The Monroe County zoning ordinance as adopted and amended. The Monroe County comprehensive plan as adopted and amended. The Monroe County subdivision control ordinance as adopted and amended. The Monroe County Plan Commission rules of procedure as adopted and amended. And the cases that were legally advertised and scheduled for a hearing on tonight's agenda.
Move approval of the evidence.
Second.
I'll call the roll. Scott Ferris.
Yes.
Jeff Morris.
Yes.
Cheryl Munson.
Yes.
Dee Owens.
Yes.
Jerry Pittsford.
Yes.
Julie Thomas.
Yes.
Tron Enright Randolph.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 7-0.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve tonight's agenda as presented and published. Vote yes is a vote to approve the agenda. Jeff Morris.
Yes.
Cheryl Munson.
Yes.
Dee Owens.
Yes.
Jerry Pittsford.
Yes.
Julie Thomas.
Yes.
Tron Enright Randolph.
Yes.
Scott Ferris.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, we have 1 set of minutes tonight to approve. So do we have a motion to approve the minutes from April 16th, 2024?
Move approval of the minutes, April 16th, 2024. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. Vote yes is a vote to approve. Cheryl Munson.
Yes.
Dee Owens.
Yes.
Jerry Pittsford.
Yes.
Julie Thomas.
Yes.
Tron Enright Randolph.
I've only missed one. I'm not sure if I was in attendance on that, but I do always watch the CATS recording after I miss one, which allows me to vote, is from my understanding, so I'll vote yes.
Scott Ferris.
Yes.
Jeff Morris.
Yes.
Motion is approved 7-0.
Okay. So moving to the part 1 of the packet, unfinished business. First item tonight is PUO-23-6. That is the North Park 2 PUD Outline Plan Amendment 1, and this is the final hearing. So Ann, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. Okay, so I have a few intro slides. I believe this might be the 3rd time we hear this evening, so I'm not going to do a full presentation. So we do have one update, which I will get to. So this is a request to amend the North Park 2 amendment. Again, we're looking at North Packing House Road, Bloomington Township, Section 30. So just on the screen is a quick aerial view of the petition site, and then next is another pictometry photo for more quarry site. So the property is currently zoned North Park 2, which is separate than the rest of the North Park PUD. Oops, skipped a couple. So a few updates along the way. This is not new information. We did hear this last time, but the petition has been amended to originally to add mass fill and grading, or mass grading with filling options, specifically as a permitted use. Originally, it was for the entire site. It has been amended to only be for 27.5 acres, or specifically the draft development plan that they've included in their exhibits. They have clarified that if they seek to try to utilize the rest of the property for the mass grading with filling operations, it would require another outline plan amendment. So if the petition is approved, the next step would be a development plan for the filling of those 27.5 acres, and which would require highway and stormwater review. So this is the development plan draft they had included in their exhibits. So that's the 27, roughly 27. I think specifically it says 23 acres, but it's roughly 27 acres on the screen. So I'm going to skip through some of the definition of mass grading with filling operations. We did receive, based on feedback from Plan Commission, we did receive a written commitment with meeting all of the requests that the Plan Commission outlined, and went into some detail about the concerns such as testing the fill material, concerns about historic preservation, where specifically areas could be filled. One of the items that I will go into a little bit more is that they did include within that written commitment a area that they are proposing to preserve as a historic preservation area under this written commitment. This does include a quarry that's currently on site, and also quarry areas and structures that are off site that the petitioner also owns, an adjacent property that is not within the petition site. They are including that to preserve it under the written commitment. So to continue on, just screen clips of the proposed written commitment. So we received a letter from the Board of Historic Preservation back in May. As of today, they have issued a new letter to us, which I'll get to in just a moment. We do have a few new exhibits that we can look at. So the professional engineer, Daniel Butler with Bynum Faneuil, provided 3 new documents. So they used this, they attended the Historic Preservation Board of Review meeting yesterday, last night. So the 3 documents that they went over here is just the proposed development plan that has the elevations highlighted a little more clearly. The next 2 images, this is an example of what the site would look like with the fill completed. So once the mass grading and filling options, so for example, this is that same view as it currently stands. We're looking at the elevations. So you can see the 2 pits on the screen. Those are the current existing quarry pits that they would be filling. You see this smoothed curved line closest to us on the screen in the image. That would be the highway interstate ramp. So that's as it is, and then bounce back, that is the proposal. So it kind of helps us understand what the elevation would actually look like. This is another exhibit where they kind of highlight the elevation changes. So the Board of Review did include a new letter, and I would like to ask, I can flip through this on the screen, and I can also read it out loud. Unfortunately, nobody was able to attend the meeting tonight, although they do plan on attending the commissioners meeting for this petition. Would the Plan Commission like me to go ahead and read this out loud?
I've read it, so I don't need it. Does anybody need it read out loud?
No.
Doesn't
Okay.
appear so.
It will be included in the record as any other documents shared at the meeting. So
Thank you.
just on the screen, then I will just allow a little bit of time. So after last night's meeting, they have offered their support of this petition. So I'll just pull out one line here real quick. That said, we reviewed the document referred to as Exhibit 9, Commitment Concerning the Use and Development of Real Estate, and give a positive recommendation for the petitioner's plan with the understanding that the petitioner will immediately begin working with our board for the historic designation process for the area highlighted in green on Exhibit B.
You be able to bring up Exhibit B?
Yeah, that's what I was looking for.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Would you be able to bring up Exhibit B?
Yes. So Exhibit B is what we briefly saw here. So this is Exhibit B within their written commitment.
So go to the elevation chart, and if you can point out where the historic preservation area is on that chart.
Okay. Would we mind if I go ahead and just really quickly finish up with the recommendation?
Yeah.
And then we'll bump to that. Okay, wonderful. So overall, staff recommends forwarding the petition with a positive recommendation to the county commissioners, subject to the highway department and stormwater reports, with the following conditions. And the first condition is to mainly include the written commitment, and we saw this last time. So number 1, the written commitment is updated to include A, revisions requested by county legal as shown in the staff report Exhibit 10, B, a list of soil contaminants that would be tested for, and C, includes the real estate description of parcel 5305304007-00-004. And then just as an something for the Plan Commission to consider with their vote tonight is to consider adding a condition that the petitioner, pursue the local HP designation for the areas shown in Exhibit B per the letter that they've sent today. Okay, thank you all. And Scott, you would like to see the elevation example?
Back to the elevation chart and just point out where the historic preservation area is.
Okay, so is this the right example?
Green one,
Yeah,
the green charts, not the exhibit, but the,
Here?
yes.
Okay, so we would be looking, we're looking kind of southwest right now, so we would not see the heights and the elevations of the area to be preserved.
Next chart then, go to the next chart.
Okay, so that'd be the before fill. It would be far right, it would not be visible on our image.
But this shows the elevation, and it shows the 3 quarries, correct? That's what those holes are right there.
I think so.
That is the current, yes.
Yes.
The petitioner, I'm sure, will be able to chime in when they come up.
Yeah, the petitioner will get 15 minutes after we finish Plan Commission questions. Okay.
but we briefly saw it on the screen. A green
Yeah,
area.
I think we can revisit when the petitioner's at the
Yeah, I think so
podium.
too.
Okay, are there any other questions for Ann? Mr. Enright Randolph?
Yeah, it goes back to kind of one of my original questions, and I did watch the last meeting that this was discussed. I wasn't here. Sorry, I got way too many tabs up. Okay, so protection of the jurisdictional wetlands on the property. It was stated that there will be some disturbance of the wetlands, but the remainder will be protected. Is that still the case? Are they still, planning on disturbing some of the wetlands? And I guess maybe disturbing is kind of a vague term, so I'm really curious what is going to occur if that's still going to take place on this proposal.
So I think there was a lot of discussion about the areas the original petition request was for the whole site.
Right.
My understanding from the karst report and the environmental report is that the wetlands are not necessarily located where the 27.5 acres is, which they've limited the scope
Okay.
of the use to. There's a spring and a couple of karsts, which they have accommodated already.
And I guess it goes to that first bullet point where it says, talk about plan commissioners' questions. And it was stated that some will be disturbed, and disturbed, does that mean filled in? Does that mean that they're just going to disturb it, as they're kind of maybe, gaining access to certain areas? Like, I guess a little more clarity on that would be helpful, and if the petitioners can provide that, that would be great. Their representative had provided the feedback during that first discussion, so, and I'm not sure if Mr. Butler is online or not.
For my own clarity, what bullet point are you referring to?
Okay, in the packet, page 5, bullet point 1.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Ann?
I had another one. It goes with my second question, bullet point 2, how to ensure clean fill. From my understanding, it's like they just have processes in place. What I would really like is a commitment to having testing being done, maybe by the direction of the stormwater program, or like a set quarterly thing where they can kind of go test the soil, maybe even do some boring to really see what kind of fill's going in, and making sure that we do whatever we can to mitigate any type of pollutants. And I'm not questioning your process and the way that you already inspect the fill. It's just kind of a concern of mine, especially in that particular area where there has been quarrying. There are identified karst and environmental features that could really serve as a conduit to our underground aquifers, and that's a big concern of mine. So I saw that you already were ready to address that question, please.
Yeah, they do outline in the written commitment how they would go about testing. The MS4 coordinator has reviewed this, and their only request was that they specifically outline what contaminants they would be testing. They do state that let me find it right here. Essentially, it basically says that they don't outline a specific testing schedule, but they basically say it's as requested. So it would be up to planning and stormwater to work together and come up kind of an outline of timing when we would like to see that testing during active fill.
Okay. I guess my thoughts, not really a follow-up question on that, is I would like to see like more of a fixed procedure in place, a process in place with quarterly people get busy, the county closes because a storm came through, which was necessary. Where if we had these fixed timelines of doing these inspections and testing, I think would be way more comfortable for me to get behind and support. And also kind of, providing a bullet point list of what we're looking for. Our county experienced tragic PCP contamination in certain areas, and that would be like one key thing to test for. I'd defer to Kelsey Fatonia and the stormwater program, and even the drainage board for other, things that we should be looking for. But again, that's kind of where my thoughts are. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Enright Randolph. Are there any other questions for Ann? Okay, seeing none, we will move now to the petitioner. If the petitioner or petitioner's representative would like to come forward, you'll have 15 minutes to state your case. And if you could stay up here afterwards, it sounds like we have a few questions from the Plan Commission for you. We'll start with Mr. Ferris. So you'll have 15 minutes if you'd like to come forward. Okay. Sure, Mr. Butler, if you want to start, any petitioner's representative will have a combined 15 minutes. So I just want to state that up front. So you'll need to share the 15-minute time frame. But go ahead, Mr. Butler.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I think the only thing that I would add at this point, because we have been working a lot on making sure that the fill was adequate and not over extending the amount that was, it seemed like last time a lot of concern was going into, how much fill is going in here. So we've addressed that. To answer, I believe, Mr. Randolph's question about the amount of or what's being disturbed for the wetlands. There's just a small piece in the environmental report that as you drive into the site, there's a small flag that would have to be disturbed, but no sinkholes would be disturbed with this plan, but there's a small flag of wetland, but everything else would be preserved.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Butler. Would either of you like to come forward? If you could state your name for us, please.
Mark Nagel with Milestone Contractors. Could you go back to the two new exhibits real quick?
Which one?
The two new ones that we sent. So this is the quarry holes that are being preserved right here. And this is the fill back here in the background. So this would be looking like if you're on the State Road 46 to I-69 South ramp looking across there. You can't see anything right now, and the ramp's actually down below this. There's a stone ledge right there, so you really can't see, so you're up above, but those are the quarry holes that would be preserved. You want to flip back one more?
I was totally wrong and misinterpreted that image.
No problem.
So I'm so glad you pointed that out.
And then we wanted to show here, because when we showed the contour maps, because of the size of the site, the contour lines got very close and looked very steep. But this is that grade coming off there at a 3-to-1 mowable slope coming off there. You can kind of see. And then the other thing that I would point out is this piece back here that is the highest. That is not our fill. That's already there. If you flip back one more, that's here on this Hannah Properties LLC. That's at an 820 elevation, and we are only going down from that. So we're 820 here. We're down 20 feet to 801 over here. So there was some concern about it. I understand it's really hard to look at this and visualize what does that look like. Are we building a mountain out there? But like I said, this elevation's all right here, and we're only going to be lower than what's currently there on that property. So I just wanted to point those things out with the new exhibits, and I can answer any questions, or Daniel might be able to.
Yeah. Let's start with Mr. Ferris first. Did that answer your question?
You answered my question.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you. We'll go to Commissioner Thomas next then.
If you could go back one slide. Sorry, I know we need to number these or something. That one, yes. Okay. So it is so helpful to have this, because that's what I feel like was missing the last time. But my question is, where you're talking about the mowable slope, is that actually in strips where there's a strip and then a 2-foot drop and then a strip and a
No,
two? It's really a slope.
It's really a slope, yes.
Okay. And then I have follow-up questions for Ms. Thetonia before we get a motion, and then I'm happy. So thank you. Thank you for that.
No problem.
Okay, are there any other questions for the petitioner?
I guess just one, and it already seems like you're somewhat agreeable to the idea of kind of having some more of this testing going on. Just, I think it would benefit for all parties to have kind of more guidance of what to do. So let's say that they do put it on like more of a set schedule, and having certain things that we're looking for when we do that testing, that you're still comfortable with that.
I think we've already got that, because I think in our commitment we said it's quarterly, and then one of the requirements is that we're adding what we're testing for.
Okay, and this might go in line with Commissioner Thomas's questions to Kelsey. So thank you. That answers my question.
No problem.
Okay. Any other questions for the petitioner? I do have one if nobody else has one. My question, sir, is in the letter that the Historic Preservation Board of Review wrote, it has a sentence in here that says that they recommend a positive recommendation for the petitioner's plan with the understanding that the petitioner will immediately begin working with our board for the historic designation process for the area highlighted in green on Exhibit B. Do you support the Historic Preservation's Board of Review's recommendation?
Yeah, we were there
Okay.
the last meeting, and we were there last night and met with them, And we took them these same pictures so they could kind of understand. And yeah, I didn't know what that meant until they explained it to me. But once they did, I said, yeah, we've already committed that we're not touching the area. That's part of our commitment, that we're not touching that area. So adding their designation to it, as I understand it, just then carries it forward when we sell the property. That is not, it's not just our commitment anymore. That, as I understand, I know Drew was there, but that's what they explained to me.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate hearing you confirm that you're in support of that, so thank you.
Yeah, so if we make that a condition of approval, you're okay with, okay, thank you.
Thank
I
you
assumed that it was up there because they approved it, but I'm glad you asked.
Yeah, thank you for finishing that.
Okay. We're all good, we're all good.
Okay, any other questions for the petitioner? Okay, seeing none, we can move to, thank you, sir, for coming up, and thank you, Mr. Butler. Seeing no other questions, we can move now to the remonstrance portion and open this up for public comment. So if there's anyone here in the room who wishes to speak in favor of this petition, or anyone online who wishes to speak in favor, please raise your virtual hand if you're online, or come to the podium if you're here in the room. Seeing no one, if there's anyone here in the room who wishes to speak against this, please come to the podium, and anyone online who wishes to speak against, please raise your virtual hand. Okay, seeing none, we will quickly close the public comment portion of this and turn now to the Plan Commission for discussion. So I know we have questions for Ms. Thetonia. Are there any other questions or comments amongst the Plan Commission that anybody would like to discuss?
I'm grateful that I thought I saw Ms. Thetonio's online. I'm wondering if I could ask some questions. This relates to page 9 and 10 in the packet. There are questions about water flow off of I-69. There are questions about the SWIP. There are questions about the overall grading plan, the silt fence, drainage calculations, stabilizing topsoil, and of course, first and foremost, sinking streams, sinkholes, and karst springs. And it looks like the last entries of this, outside of an example that was sent this month, are dated from quite a few months back. So Ms. Thetonia, are you satisfied with the conditions that are listed here? Because it would come back for plan development review from you and or the Drainage Board once more, but are you satisfied with the conditions that are here? Is there anything else that we need to add?
Hi, Julie. This is Kelsey. Yeah, the Drainage Board reviewed this project twice already, actually. We had extensive discussion about potential impacts to surface and groundwater. I support this current plan and the conditions on it. And I think the Drainage Board and I decided that we had enough information at this point, and our detailed plans and calculations can be handled at the development plan review stage. I also want to add, a couple of my comments included requiring some benching on that slope to help with erosion control. And I said the drainage from I-69, like that to me is something we can work through in the development plan when we get, when we move forward with the final grading plan.
Thank you, Ms. Thetonia. Are there any other questions for Ms. Thetonia while we have her unmuted? Mr. Enright Randolph?
They just go right back to the same questions. Just well, one, I'll add another one. Do you think it could be beneficial to take it to the review board one more time prior to it moving forward to the Board of Commissioners, regardless of what type of recommendation or no recommendation we make today? That just covers all the possibilities. And then I'll go ahead and just The reason I'm asking that is because of kind of putting more of a schedule together of testing and what we're looking for, and having that recommendation kind of come from you and the drainage board. I feel like, we don't have to get this done in a hurry, and that one more kind of go around with the drainage board could be very beneficial and provide additional information for the county commissioners when it makes it to them for a final decision.
I will take this to the drainage board one more time during the development plan review. Whether that comes before or after the commissioner's decision, I will defer to the plan commission and commissioners on that. But I will take it to the drainage board again. And we did talk about that sampling from that drainage board, so we can certainly dig into that in that development plan review. I think that's a great idea.
I guess my question is precipitated because if we get all this done before there's a commitment of having a more of a set schedule for testing and what we're looking for, do we lose that opportunity, or is there a point at the development phase where we can ask for that? And I guess that could be a legal or a planning question. I for some reason, I feel like this is our opportunity to put that in place. So.
Yeah, Tron, if this schedule is a condition of this approval, then there'll be an outline plan or a development plan coming forward later, or?
So I'll just, in the written commitment, there's a schedule for testing both the fill coming into the site as well as water traversing through the site. So I'll just read that out loud. So number 3 of the written commitment, owner randomly tests clean fill material for multiple contaminants. In addition to the fill testing, which is not on a schedule, the owner shall sample water flowing through the site quarterly at both points A and B as shown on Exhibit C. So if you would like more regular testing of fill coming to the site, getting dropped off, then that needs to be an amendment in the written commitment. Or if you're comfortable with it is how it is written, then we don't have to take any further action. But you could condition now changes to this written commitment.
Well, a little of this I would like really defer to more experts than kind of just the way I feel about it. But that doesn't seem to address what they're looking for. And I think that is kind of another key component to this, like what kind of testing are we looking for? And I think that was guidance that was requested by the petitioner.
That was feedback by Kelsey when she reviewed the written commitment. So
Okay, that was
condition,
Kelsey. Okay.
yes, that condition is included in there, that the commitment is updated to include a list of soil contaminants that would be tested for.
I hope I get my point across. Does everyone else feel like we're covered?
I'm not sure now,
Okay.
and I appreciate that. And I think the other thing that is missing here is how it gets reported, because you can test all you want, but who's going to get the information and what do we do with it? So I would imagine that we could add something like that to the written commitment without an issue, and we can ask the petitioner that. But yeah, I guess that is the question, is whether the review process that brings this petition to the drainage board, if it's approved by the Board of Commissioners and goes forward, then it goes through that process. Is that sufficient enough to implement a schedule, to delineate what gets sampled and how often and what for and how it gets reported? And what do we do if something goes wrong? I mean, that's another big question. So I get where you're going.
Yeah, and I don't know how to take us home. So.
Ms. Latonia, did you have something?
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
Yeah, sorry. So we require self-monitoring reports as part of our stormwater permit requirements. Our program can require the contractor to send those reports directly to us. They're done at least weekly and offer each month in payment. that'd be a great place to include the monitoring results as we have them in the reports for inspector and or myself. So that's one way to get this information to. Can we say in the condition that the sampling plan that they develop has to be at least as stringent, or at least be quarterly, and at least include these parameters a part of the proposal that they have, so that that's the bare minimum that's required, and we can always require more frequent sampling based on the intensity of the activity at the time, every one assuming, and that will give us some ability to change that sampling period. If things go wrong, we have our discharge ordinance for the county. If there's evidence of stormwater pollution within the site, we have to immediately act. Issue a stop work order, issue administrative fine.
Can I make a suggestion, since Ms. Thetonia's audio is cutting out and I was trying to write it down and it looked like others were as well? I wonder, Ms. Thetonia, if we could ask you to provide revised commitment 1B, which is the list of soil contaminants that will be tested for. If you could send that to us via email and we could get it up on the screen, that may be a way that we can go ahead and still work through this today. I don't want to delay this again. So that's my request.
I'll also say that the written commitment itself can still be amended up until the county commissioner's decision. Okay. So if there's parameters that you guys would like us to address with Ms. Thetonia following the meeting, we can also just follow up with her on those specifics.
Yeah, and I think the issue of, I don't know how we address corrective actions, but that's part of this too. So yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, and I think Councilmember Munson, I know you had your hand up a minute ago.
So thank you. I'm fascinated that here we are about to make a decision, and we're unclear as to the authority of our drainage board and perhaps other entities for enforcing the kind of actions that we would like to see take place. And this doesn't reflect on the applicant at all. This reflects on us, and I hope we can get this straightened out before we have to deal with something like this again. It's because it's confusing enough to our applicants to go through all the steps and hoops that they need. And it's confusing to the public as to what county government actually has the authority to carry out.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments for discussion amongst the Plan Commission members?
I just would like to maybe try to summarize what it is that we're wanting to address, just so that I think Ms. Thetonia had to switch computer systems just to see if her audio would be a little bit better. So my understanding of some of the concerns is that there should be more frequent or scheduled testing of the fill coming into the site. That's under number 3 of the written commitment. I wasn't sure if there was a concern about their statement that they would do quarterly water testing flowing through the site. And then I heard a concern about where to send those reports that they get once they do the testing. And then I think I may have heard also concerns about if there is contamination, who is the enforcement lead on that? Is that the concerns? Okay.
It feels to me like what's missing is a process around this. I think it's like Councilmember Munson said, it's somewhat unrelated to this particular petition. It's tied to it, but there's a process behind it that needs to be figured out. Yeah, Ms. Latonia, go ahead.
Can y'all hear me now better?
A little bit better. I think we could read the transcription at the bottom of the screen.
Okay, I'm so sorry. So my program has the authority to pursue enforcement for any non-stormwater discharge into a waterway in the county. So if we receive sample results, if we observe anything that contributes to a violation of water quality standards, such as odor, sheen, discoloration, we can pursue enforcement. So we have very stringent regulations on water pollution in the county, and we take it very seriously. So I want to just make you aware that my program is the lead for any water quality issues, whether they have a construction permit or not. So.
Thank you, Ms. Latonia. I think that helps. I somewhat stepped back on my comment, and it sounds like some of the processes that I was concerned we don't have in place are in place, just not through the Planning Commission.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
does make me feel better.
Yeah.
So thank you.
No, I think Ms. Latonia has done a great job on this, so I appreciate it. And I think the questions are more for where we put this kind of information in our process, and I think Ms. Nestor Jelen has that information now. So thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the Plan Commission? Are we at a point where anyone would feel comfortable making a motion?
I guess just one further thing, and yeah, I knew there was a process out there. I just didn't want to say it wrong. It seems like we can address a lot of these things that we brought up, also take action today, and if we need to adjust the written commitment, that we could have a revised one for the Board of Commissioners. And I guess that would be my suggestion, is that we make this, conditional to stormwater's review, and making sure we address all those concerns that we talked about. And also, Jackie, that you kind of went through, which I didn't see any other question out there floating around as far as this discussion went. So I wanted to affirm that I believe those were the talking points. And then if that's the case, we could move this forward and then resolve it prior to the Board of Commissioners. Does that seem like a good way of addressing that? And I would defer to my colleagues on this.
You have a motion you'd like to make, Mr. Enright Randolph?
I usually leave that to Jerry.
Y'all have brought up so many different things that you want to see added to this. It would be a fool's errand to try to craft that Frankensteinian motion. I can send it forward with a simple recommendation of what's written as commitments up to this point, with the understanding that prior to going to the commissioners, all loose ends discussed here will be resolved. But that's the pretty slipshod motion. I really could not articulate every concern y'all brought up.
Scott, do you want to try to make a motion? I mean, I could do it if you.
What I would suggest is, Jackie, can you summarize what we think we're asking for, please?
Sure. So I think that what you're requesting, I can try and repeat for anyone that would like to make a motion, but under the written commitment is updated to include, I would state that it would say, under number 3, they should state a schedule of testing of the fill coming into the site, list the types of soil contaminants that will be tested for, state where the reports will be submitted, and if necessary, bolster the section on if contamination is found and the process for enforcement. And that would be up to Ms. Latonia.
I'm going to go ahead and make a motion on PUO 23-6 to forward this as a positive recommendation to the Monroe County Board of Commissioners, subject to Highway Department and stormwater reports with the following conditions. Condition 1, the written commitment to include the language written on the screen, revisions requested by county legal as shown in Exhibit 10, list of soil contaminants that will be tested for, and asterisk that, C point 3. And 1C includes the real estate description of the parcel. The second condition is that this is contingent on the pursuit of a local historic preservation designation for areas shown in Exhibit B per the letter by the Monroe County Historic Preservation Board of Review. And number 3 was just outlined by Ms. Nestor-Jelen, and that would be point 3. And this is the final hearing, so we don't have to do a waiver.
I'll second that.
Does that work? Thank you.
Okay.
May I ask a question on the motion before we proceed?
Yes.
Stated in the packet was a written commitment for updated revisions provided by county legal as shown in Exhibit 10. Was that part of the motion? Because I don't.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I may just repeat the part 3 that I stated before, and to add to that motion, just so everyone has a refresh of what it was. So under number 3, Commissioner Thomas's motion includes that the written commitment be further edited to state a schedule of testing of the fill coming into the site, state where to submit those reports in the written commitment, and if required by stormwater, bolster the section on contamination and reference who leads the enforcement process. A vote yes is a vote to send a positive recommendation to the county commissioners with those conditions. Dee Owens?
Yes.
Jerry Pittsford?
Based on the fact we've had so many hearings on this and then we end up with loose ends again tonight, I can't in good conscience approve this motion. No.
Julie Thomas?
Yes.
Tron Enright Randolph?
Yes.
Scott Ferris?
Yes.
Jeff Morris?
Yes.
Cheryl Munson?
Yes.
Okay, the motion is approved 6-1. Or forwarded a positive recommendation, 6-1.
Thank you, Jackie. And I just wanted to say thank you to the petitioner and everybody who's worked on this. I know a lot of work has gone into this over the last few months, and a lot of compromises have been made. So thank you. And to Mr. Pittsford's point, I realize there's still some loose ends, but it does feel like we've come a long way since the beginning. So thank you all. So moving on to ZOA-24-2, amendments to the Monroe County zoning ordinance. Jackie?
Okay. Yes, so this is a proposal for amending 3 chapters, 2 chapters in the zoning ordinance and 1 chapter in the subdivision ordinance. And this is in regard to a House Bill 1108 that went into effect on July 1st. So we are hearing this for the second time. This is the final hearing, and I'll go ahead and just share on the screen some of the changes that we're revising to each chapter. So beginning with Chapter 804, which is our height, bulk, area, and density provisions, we're proposing that we would go ahead and strike an administrative waiver of the 15% slope provision. House Bill 1108 passed by the state now makes it so that we cannot regulate development solely on the basis of slopes 25% or less. So we are going to get rid of the administrative waiver procedure because we don't feel that we would administratively need to waive slopes greater than 25%. We feel that's best handled by the Board of Zoning Appeals should someone propose development beyond that. The second change in Chapter 804 is in regard to our buildable area description, which is stating that we are would like it to change to say the following shall not be included in buildable area: slopes 25% or greater as measured as a 12.5 foot fall over a 50-foot distance. And then another point that we would add is that areas 1 through 3 in the environmental constraints overlay have additional slope restrictions as specified in Chapter 825. So we are able to still regulate slopes less than 25% if it is in regard to a drinking water source. So we are still in keeping with our environmental constraint overlay provisions. It's just the countywide 15% slope changes that we're changing. And then there's a small change to the graphic as well to say restricted slopes instead of 15% slopes.
Jackie, I think Mr. Pittsford's got a question for you.
Sure.
Thank you. If I might interject. So did the state legislation, and I confess ignorance of the actual wording of that legislation, does it allow for that's not the right word, for greater control of slopes in environmental constraints areas? So there is language. Dave's shaking his head. So, okay. So I guess that fits. So, yeah, I wonder if we'll see an expansion of environmental conservation areas in the future. So, all right, thank you.
The next
It's
change.
helpful. I was just going to say it's House Enrolled Act 1108.
Okay.
The next change is in Chapter 815, and that is in regard to our requirements for submitting a certified plot plan or commercial site plan. We're asking that we now show, in addition to a 15% slope line, we're still allowed to ask for that to be delineated on plans. We also want them to show, if applicable, a 25% slope line. And then and the rest of the sentence stays unchanged, which is if located in the environmental constraint overlay, then show an applicable slope line in addition. And then we're adding section AA, which states that site plans and plot plans shall comply with Chapter 761, which is the Stormwater Code, and that the Stormwater Technical Standards Manual regarding all erosion control measures also be applicable. So what this means is that even if you do want to develop on slopes greater than 15%, our stormwater team can advise planning, or if they're required to get a stormwater permit, they can advise the applicant to put in additional best management practices just to avoid any erosion control issues down the line. The last change is in Chapter 856, very similar to Chapter 804. Again, it's just addressing that buildable area image and stating that we'll now be changing to a 25% slope and preserving the environmental constraint overlay area. And I believe that is it on the changes in 856. Yes. So are there any questions?
I have a
Mr.
comment.
Randolph. Go ahead.
My comment, and as this bill was going through, and I guess this is my first time to make kind of a more formal, official opinion or comment, I felt like this goes against the Home Rule Act that the state of Indiana has, which basically allows municipalities, political subdivisions, to identify what's best for their community. Sure, there might be certain cases where, you know, you could build on, 15% slope, but in my opinion, I think we're best suited in Monroe County to determine, what types of restrictions we should have. And I think that the state kind of stepped over the line of allowing us to conduct our affairs as we see fit. And again, I think that just goes against, the Home Rule Act of the state of Indiana. And I was quite upset because, if they are going to do it here, or they're going to do it elsewhere, and make it harder for us to have an ordinance that really works best for Monroe County. So I just wanted to kind of go on record and say that.
Thank you, Mr. Enright Randolph. Let's turn to public comment really quick. If there's anyone here or online who wishes to speak in favor of these changes, please come to the podium or raise your virtual hand. If there's anyone here in the room who wishes to speak against these changes or online, please raise your virtual hand or come to the podium if you're in the room. Okay, seeing none, we can close the public comment portion and then come back to Plan Commission if there's any further comments. There are no comments. We could entertain a motion.
The motion, are we looking for? Are you bringing that up, or?
This would be a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. It's under just ZOA-24-2.
Okay. Under case number ZOA-24-2, amendments to the Monroe County Zoning Ordinance, Chapter 804, Chapter 815, amendment to Monroe County Subdivision Control Ordinance, Chapter 856. And this is the final hearing. I move with a very lighthearted, favorable recommendation to the Board of Commissioners.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to send a favorable recommendation to the Board of Commissioners regarding ZOA-24-2 changes. A vote yes is a vote to send a favorable recommendation. Jerry Pittsford?
Yes.
Julie Thomas?
I have been sworn to uphold the laws of the state of Indiana, but this is an advisory board, so I'm going to vote no.
John Enright Randolph?
Very hard. How about yes?
Scott Ferris?
Everybody wants to vote.
Yes.
We can all vote no. 'Cause it's so
Jeff
much
Morris?
support either way.
Yes.
Cheryl Munson?
Still comes to the board.
Reluctantly, yes.
Dee Owens?
All the above, yes.
The motion is send a favorable recommendation by a vote of 6-1.
Okay, thank you, Jackie. So both items under new business, as I mentioned earlier, have been continued. So that brings us to the end. Is there any thing that anybody wants to speak about that's not on the agenda tonight? If you're in the room, please come to the podium. If you are online, please raise your virtual hand. Not seeing anything. Are there any reports from legal or planning tonight?
No.
Reports.
Okay, so we will bring, first, do we have a motion to adjourn the public hearing portion?
So we won't adjourn officially. This will just be the administrative business section of the regular session since I
Okay.
didn't separately notice it. So we'll just recess if you'd like.
Okay, so I rescind my motion for
We
adjournment.
don't
You
wanna
can't
adjourn
leave yet.
Yeah. Oh.
Nobody ran off really quick. Does anybody want to break before we move to the
I would.
administrative portion?
You can go proceed without me, but I'm going to take a quick break.
Is anybody?
I mean, since one, I'll say yes. I'll take one too, I guess.
Okay, let's
just do that.
let's return at 6:35 then. That'll give us a 4-minute break.
It's a 3-minute break.
3-minute break.
Julie, I have to say that.
You're too generous.
My desire for.
Okay, let's go ahead and reconvene with the administrative portion of the meeting. So the first item is VAR-24-14, the Sonulay refund request. Is Daniel here to take this one, or are you taking this, Jackie?
I believe Daniel is online. I'm
Okay.
happy to take it though if he's having any technical difficulties. Daniel, are you able to share your screen?
Yes, I am. Is this showing all right?
Ooh. Yes, we can see it. It's a little bit small. If you could zoom in, that might be helpful.
There, thank you.
That's good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I can see it.
So this is a refund request for 2 design standards with the purpose of establishing a detached accessory dwelling unit on the property. The use is only permitted in the agricultural rural reserve, forest reserve, and conservation residential zoning districts, and is subject to special conditions number 53 and 55. The property is zoned agriculture rural reserve following a approved rezone from light industrial in 2022. That's REZ 22-5 and ordinance number 2022-26. However, a design standards variance was needed because the petitioner does not currently meet the 5-acre minimum requirements, with the property only measuring 4.65 acres. In addition, condition number 55 states that a dadu can only have up to 1,000 square feet of living space. However, the petitioner was proposing to place a manufactured home on the property that measures approximately 1,280 square feet. The petition was issued a letter of acceptance on April 2nd, 2024, and was originally scheduled to be heard on May 1st, 2024, but it was continued to the June meeting so the petitioner could decide on the size for the dadu. However, due to difficulties in getting a sewer connection from the City of Bloomington Utilities, the petitioner has since decided to abandon the project for the time being and is not interested in pursuing the variance at this time. Staff accepted the variance filing and conducted a site visit, but this variance has not been presented at any meetings of the Board of Zoning Appeals. The total filing fee for the variance was $258.50. Staff supports a refund of $250, which does not include the cost for the petition sign. Any questions?
I don't see any questions for you, Daniel. Thank you. Are there any comments from members of the Plan Commission?
I'm going to make a motion to approve VAR-24-14 refund request in the full amount requested.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to provide a refund in the amount of $250 for VAR-24-14. A vote yes is a vote to issue the refund for $250. Julie Thomas,
Yes.
Tron Enright Randolph,
Yes.
Scott Ferris.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Are we refunding $250 or are we funding $258.50?
The request was for $250, so that's the amount that I believe Commissioner Thomas requested or motioned to request.
Right. It's amount request.
Yes. I read that wrong.
Jeff Morris,
Yes.
Cheryl Munson,
Yes.
Dee Owens,
Yes.
Jerry Pittsford,
I'm going to vote yes.
okay. Motion is approved 7-0.
If I might, before you move on, I think, and I understand staff is really the determiner on this about the amount of time committed and stuff. What I want to say is that when I see conducted a site visit, that's time. And when we grant a refund, that's uncompensated time. I really, and I know staff does, I really know staff does, let people know, hey, once you pay some of these fees, they're not coming back. And this is one where I think staff is being generous. in the future, I would probably be less inclined to support a refund when a staff visit has occurred. I realize maybe no real paperwork transpired, but a site visit is a day out of the office or part of a day out of office, and I don't think we should necessarily always be inclined to refund on those. Thank you.
I appreciate that, Jerry. And because this was part of an earlier rezone, I do believe we had site photos that were relatively recent on the petition file. And so I think we were able to reuse a lot of that information that did have a filing fee. But I agree that it is bad practice to return all of the funds. And I don't know if Mr. Schilling wants to weigh in at all, but we're not allowed to waive funds.
I might want to weigh in on this
Sure.
because I will tell you that ordinarily I agree, typically partial is in order, but in this case, this is absolutely not the fault of the petitioner at all. They did not change their mind. They weren't capricious about it. The city of Bloomington did this, and I don't want them to have to pay twice for that. So that's why I'm good with that one.
Okay. If I may, Commissioner Thomas, you are absolutely correct. I was not disregarding that. It was specifically the site visit that I wanted to call attention to.
I would normally do partial or something, but this
Right.
case, it's like, boy, they did nothing wrong.
Right, and
Thank
I
you,
know
City of
that there were red flag markers all along that path.
You got it.
Mr. Ferris, did you have a comment?
So I have a question for Jackie, and this is really education for me. What's the approval process here? Does it have to come to the Plan Commission for approval, or can you take, on a selective basis, do that?
We do have to take refunds through the Plan Commission before they can be issued.
Now, there's no exceptions. Okay.
No.
It's not their money.
Okay.
Once it's deposited, it's in the general fund, and then we have to
That makes sense.
basically get a check back. Checks and balances,
That makes too
government
much
at work.
Balances and lots of checks.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Jackie. So moving on to the next item on the agenda, the CDO timeline discussion.
Yes, so I want to bring up a few upcoming items for the CDO, just as they're listed in the agenda. And then I'll also have, we have another section with page numbers associated. So the first item that I want to call the Plan Commission's attention to, and also invite you to if you would like, the County Council is going to be hearing a request by the Planning Department for requests for additional appropriation so that we're able to mail the CDO notices as required by state statute. And that meeting's going to be July 23rd at 5 p.m. in this room. So, yes, see you soon. I'm happy to provide the packet to anyone that would like to see more specifics on the amount that we're requesting, the 2 bids that we were able to get estimates for. Yes.
Sorry to ask a question, but I'm going to. Would you like a member or two of the Plan Commission to be there to speak about this before the council?
If you would like. I think that having passed it by member Munson over there, I think that we're in pretty good shape in terms of the request, and I don't think there's many questions by the county, but county council.
And to save you all time, I would urge you just to appear virtually to the county council. We're very happy to look at your virtual faces.
And I don't believe the agenda's quite yet been published, so I'm not sure what order we're in, if we're in the beginning or not, so. But yes, I can, I'll just go ahead and send it out to anyone that would like to attend, and I'll make a plug to attend virtually if they would like, so. Okay, thank you. And then the second item that we wanted to discuss is that we received a full draft of the county development ordinance from our consultants that staff has been spending a lot of time on, and they finally got that back to us yesterday. So we have in our possession a full draft of the county development ordinance, and we are going to be putting that in the packet for the August 6th Plan Commission administrative meeting. And though we're not going to be taking any public comment at this meeting. We do want to just make sure that with the draft in hand that you all feel comfortable with us proceeding with the notice. We'll go ahead and share with you kind of what the schedule is going to look like that we would like to notice the CDO for those initial public hearings by the Plan Commission.
And how large is that document? How large is that document?
400 some pages. 470 pages.
It's light reading because it's all all legal stuff.
Lots of pictures. Lots of pictures of that.
Sure.
And would that meeting would be at the Showers Building per usual?
So we do have it in the Showers Building, room 100B. If you would like, I put this on the agenda to speak to the fact that we originally mentioned the idea that it could be a joint meeting of the Plan Commission and the County Commissioners. Is that still of interest? If yes, we could notice it that way and invite the commissioners.
I'm good with that.
There, you got to deal with me, and I get two more of you. I may be out of town and be virtual, but I will check with my colleagues but I might have to come back for that. So
yeah, I feel like if we're at the point where we have a single one-piece document, that it's time for joint conversations.
Okay. I think that so that the August 6th joint meeting, if we had it, we would go ahead and we could notice it to say it may be a meeting that includes a quorum of the commissioners, but it will require a quorum of the Plan Commission to have that meeting, and that we can notice it that way. But I do think that we will have during that meeting a conversation about the timeline for when the public hearings start, and I do anticipate having further joint meetings beyond just this first meeting with the document.
Is there going to be regular administrative business done at this meeting?
No, I was going to just do the CDO during that meeting.
Can we hold it here?
It would be helpful.
It looks vacant.
Okay. Yeah, we could check on that.
Yeah.
I think here would be better if we can get it, just because there's more room and it's a little bit better for presenting information because there's multiple screens. So if we could, that would be great. Not a must-have, but yeah.
Do you still want it to be an administrative meeting only with no public comment taken, even if hosted here? Okay, still administrative. Okay.
So is this going to be like a straw man review of the major contents, or is this going to be death by briefing slides of 400 pages worth of document?
My hope is that everyone will have a chance to take a look at it. And generally speaking, if people feel like it is a put together enough document that we can work with it and get it to a place by the end of this year for full adoption, then I would like to see that we proceed with notices soon after.
So at the conclusion of this meeting, what is your expectation?
If we're able to get a vote of a majority of the Plan Commission to send out public notices to the required 43,000 people, I will be sending that CDO notice mid-August to start putting people on notice for the hearing schedule, which I anticipate the first hearing being October 1st, but we have a little bit of flexibility that we can talk through at that administrative meeting.
Time to fish or cut bait.
And I will just, remind the public and remind my colleagues that this is, part of a much bigger process, of course, and we've been going through this process for a very long time and cannot thank staff and legal enough for all the work they've done on it. But it's never going to be perfect, and that's why we amend it later. So I think our goal is great, but not perfect. And I think that's an important thing to remember. as we move through this process, that we don't want to, obviously we want to make sure that everything's in order and all of that. When did you say you were going to issue the full copy? Is it online?
We can post it as soon as like today or tomorrow, and then it would be for the August 6th meeting. We would just have the packet go out with that link shared to everyone.
So monroecdo.com.
Yes.
Perfect.
Is where
Thank
it will
you.
be. So we will put a copy in the SharePoint, and that's going to be a live document. So as staff makes changes, we can go ahead and date those as they get updated. But if anyone prints or would like a printed copy, please let me know. It will change frequently, but if you read or interpret better on paper, we can provide you with that. Okay.
So we're close enough that having a printed one where you can start doing markovers is not going to be a waste of resources and time. Is that a fair assessment?
I think that is a fair assessment.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Because I do like my marks, but I don't want one that is going to be tossed out the window on my way home.
Yeah. So if we are going to be printing anyone copies, just let us know if you would like a printed copy. And as Tammy reminded me, we're going to put in some good work to like do some fixes that we've already identified for the August 6th packet, but we can give it to you now as we're still reviewing it. Like I said, it's going to be a living, breathing document for a while.
So in my history with document review, they normally have either a side-by-side or a comment section, particularly on controversial topics, on why it was agreed that we do this versus that. Is that also included, or?
There's footnotes throughout the
there'll be
entire ordinance that do point you to changes between the existing ordinance and the new ordinance. There is not, the consultants have not put together an exact red line version, though I did do that for the first module, and I'm debating doing that for the full thing. I do think that would be quite time consuming, but at least at the onset, the index and all the components, I want to make sure we didn't miss anything. That would be my biggest.
I'm not suggesting you do that because I know
Yeah.
that's very time consuming.
Yeah.
That wasn't kind of parsed out with the consultant to provide a red line document. I thought that was something that we had requested. I know I had mentioned that several times since we kind of started to looking at this at 2016, 2017. And I'm wondering if it was part of their agreement. Let's just make them, hold to that and provide the documents that they're obligated to provide versus making it part of your time.
Sure. I'll double check the contract. I do know that they've provided a good number of footnotes to point your eye to some of the big picture changes.
And I remember talking about that too, because it mirrored the same time that we're going through a different ordinance rewrite and a different political subdivision. And I thought it was very helpful to track, but I also thought we were asking for a red line document. So I'll just leave it there for now.
Okay. And then under Part C of the agenda, I just want to put an idea out there that we could entertain up to or reserve space for up to 4 Plan Commission hearings for the CDO in which we would take public comment. And then that would be followed by, of course, commissioner meetings to adopt the full text. Just 4 meetings.
4 months.
Sorry, what was that?
That'd be 4 months.
4 months. I have a meeting calendar in the next page,
You're
which
going to educate me on the calendar.
yes. So I can pull that up next.
I mean, and we can do special meetings.
What I'm saying is we shouldn't.
No, we should not. Right, agree.
This is a good segue into the meeting calendar. So let me show you what we're proposing. So on the right-hand side, the Plan Commission regular session, I want to point your attention to this column. We are suggesting that we take out the administrative meetings for October, November, and December, and instead publish those in the paper and notice those as regular sessions. So we would have still 2 plan commission meetings a month, but we would not have a dedicated administrative meeting. It would just be 2 hearings a month. And that's how, if we did 4 hearings beginning in October, for instance, if we stuck with this schedule, it would be October 1st, October 24th, November 7th, and then November 19th. That would get us 4 hearings in 2 months.
When would the last hearing be?
November 19th, if we did all 4, if we held 4 meetings. We're not required to hold a certain number of meetings, but I would like to just get a sense from you all. It's hard to know without knowing, but if 4 is adequate, or maybe we could plan for.
I think it's going to be very difficult to get anything done this year then, if we do it this way. Because we still have to have a meeting where we vote on it.
Mm-hmm.
And it needs to come to the commissioners. And, you know, that's really pushing the envelope. I just feel like if we did, it's too far apart as well. I think if we kind of try to find a way to do a couple meetings October, do a couple meetings November for that public comment section, and then come back to the plan commission, that still leaves us at December, and that still is very late.
Mm-hmm.
So I just don't know if there's another way to compact this a bit more. And I would just ask my colleagues to think about that.
Are you planning on incorporating comments made at these meetings, these hearings you have? I mean, it's a 400-page document, and you're going to have 4 public hearings. And chances are, depending on who shows up at those meetings, you're going to get a lot of interesting feedback. Feedback you probably have heard before, and they're going to re-engage to try to change things. And so this could be quite a prolonged, time-consuming on your part, because you're going to have to turn on a dime to take and do that. And if you go back and change something that was already written in version 1 or whatever we're calling the published document, the first published document, does it have to come back to us at that point for approval? I mean, I can build a watch here on the approval process as these recommended changes are put forth, but nobody's approved them.
So what I would suggest, and this is something I was going to discuss at the administrative meeting, is that we have sort of a set understanding of ground rules during those hearings, and that one of the ground rules would be that as a person comes up and provides comment on the CDO, instead of us directly taking that as a directive change, I would like the discussion to be from the resident to the plan commission, a discussion, and then a directive to staff. So it would go this way. And that way you may say, we'll go ahead and take a vote. So-and-so would like their property be rezoned to general business. The plan commission takes a vote that they would like to direct staff to either make that change or not make that change. And then we move on to the next person. So
400-page document.
That's not.
I understand. Yes.
400-page document.
Yes.
That could be extremely time-consuming.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm cautioning the group with. I mean, I know that you got to do this, but
There's a better way. We'll talk.
Yes.
So thinking about this process, I think it is driven by public comment, and I think we have to compact and tighten the time period for public comment. And I would prefer to see it be like a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday evening. Now that's exhausting for staff and for plan commission members, but it moves it up so that we can get it done and maybe approach the actual adoption of the CDO within this calendar year.
Okay, so you would suggest rather to have more compact public hearings, and then at the end of those hearings, then staff would make edits, and those would go to the commissioners at that point? Okay.
Yes. Yes, so, and the process that you identified before being, okay, public speaks, it comes to plan commission to make a decision, it's referred to staff, next member of the public speaks. Moving on.
I would actually recommend that we consider doing this a different way, and Jerry was part of this process that we did back with the comp plans and all the ways that we've done this we've done this so many different ways over the years. And here's what I would recommend. We keep the information on a spreadsheet or something that's on the screen as residents are making their comments, because they may not talk about their property zoning. They may be talking about something thematic or whatever it may be. We keep that list, and I think then staff can bring that list back to, and I do agree, we need to compress these into like, get them done by the end of September, mid-October. We should be done with this. And staff comes back with recommendations, just like you do with all other petitions. We spend one more session, an administrative meeting as a plan commission, making those decisions about, I think we'd like to change that, whatever it might be. Because if there's something thematic that comes up, you're going to want to talk through it with staff and think about, well, what if, right? And then we have to vote on it still before it goes to the commissioners. So if we could have that vote at the October meeting, or even worst case scenario, the November meeting, that would be great. And then it comes to the Board of Commissioners, and I'm sure we're going to be looking at like an evening meeting or something like that as well. So we're going to, obviously have the same hearing process, and it's an important part of that process. But if we could, let's just all dedicate ourselves to drinking espresso and getting this done, because this is dragged on far too long, and I think having the meetings too far apart, it just, it's a roller coaster. And I like the idea of 3 evenings. Let's get it done. And people can send in comments via email too. I mean, this is not saying that's the only way you could do it is to show up here. No, you can do it. You can be virtual. You could send an email, right? We'll have a deadline on that email. We have to receive your email by whatever date. Add that to the spreadsheet, and then we talk about it at one admin meeting after we get your comments. I just think one at a time is going to be incredibly painful.
Okay. So if we were to bring the meeting calendar back, we can vote on this at the next administrative meeting as well, if that's not too much to put that on the agenda with the CDO.
I still wanted to chime in whenever.
We're in an administrative meeting, so just speak up.
Geez, well, careful what you allow me to do.
Right, that's what I'm doing. Sorry.
All right, I'm going to pare this down into 2 kind of focuses. One is the way we're going to conduct the meeting, and the other is the scheduling. So from my observation, and I'm not sure who leans where, but it sounded to me that we would go through the hearing, the public would come and speak to us, identify concerns, issues, maybe even be excited and showing support. We would, the planning would take all of that feedback, create like a document that's kind of easy to review, maybe even allowing us a little lead time to look at that prior to the next administrative meeting. And then we would address those comments as a whole versus one person coming up to the podium, us dicing it out, and then directing staff how to kind of proceed. I like that idea. And now the other one is a lot more simple for me as far as scheduling and time goes. I would defer to planning. I think the amount of comments, the amount of feedback, and the amount of sensitivity and how this impacts others is really going to be the impetus of how we should schedule these out, how we should space them out. Because if we get 100 people speaking one day, it might take a lot more work to really kind of look at everything, and even giving us plan commission members time to digest that as well takes a significant amount of time. So that's kind of where my thoughts are. I'm in support of kind of the way that we're going to conduct the meeting that I just kind of outlined, and I feel like maybe a couple other plan commissioners mentioned it that way too. But the scheduling, I think, I'm comfortable with spacing it out for, I've been here since 2016 and 17 since we first started. I would really like to see this get done this calendar year. We have a member that has already indicated he's not going to be here with us next year. So, I would really love to use that knowledge and that experience that, that has gone into this. But also I'm very fine with understanding that this is going to impact people. And the last time we did a rewrite like this, was it 97? So I'm fine with taking time too. So I would defer to staff. And thank you.
So, for those of us who worked in government for any number of years, after Thanksgiving, all the way through the first of the year, things have a tendency to really slow down. And so I would echo the fact that September, October, you should come to closure as best you can to get this resolved. I support, my vernacular is an 80% solution is probably okay, and you can move forward with the amendments. The other part here is that it is key and essential that you set the stage on how these hearings are going to proceed and put pretty specific limits in place on timeframes. And I would, not that I want to offend anybody, but that applies to all of us. Otherwise, we could be in, if you have 100 people commenting and you got 100 changes we have to address, but we're spending 15 minutes on every single one of them, we'll never get this done.
Yeah, let's do that.
And the other thing I would point out, and I don't know if you can do this, and I apologize for saying this out loud, I call it elephants and ants. There are elephants, big important things which need to be addressed, and there are ants, and you can add something in front of that, what that could possibly be. I always focus on the elephants, and that allows you to achieve the 80% target. But limiting and providing a framework and the amount of discussion that takes place in the very beginning, and I don't know what the rules are with that, on what you can and cannot do, and whether you're given license to make your own rules. So, but like, how many minutes do the petitioners get? How many minutes do we get? I mean, or how many, and do we have to go back and forth several times? I mean, there's Robert's Rule of Order here, but I don't know how that pertains to a hearing.
Yeah, Councilmember Munson, and then I've got a comment to make also.
I don't know either, but I would like to see the proposed changes be written, all of them. And if people have trouble submitting written questions, maybe we can accommodate that somehow. But and I think it should be optional as to whether there is a verbal presentation. And to make this clear to the public that not all changes really need to be discussed verbally, to be brought to the Plan Commission's consideration.
Just to make sure I understand your comment, do you want
I think
proposed changes as in like a red line version changes of what the zoning ordinances and the subdivision ordinances now versus what it will be? Or are you just saying that the written document be presented available to the public?
I want the public to be submitting their requests in writing. I don't want them just to show up at a public hearing and say, I really would like to have this changed in this particular way. I think that is not an effective way for us to operate. And also, there are many people who are uncomfortable making a verbal statement. They are more comfortable handling this in writing. I think it'll make everything run more smoothly. But this is something that I haven't been part of, but Julie has, Jerry has, maybe Jeff has.
I have a suggestion. I think based on what you're saying, you gave me a couple really good ideas. The first one is, I think that we're going to see two different types of comments. One is related to how we manage subdivisions and those kind, how we do business and what the county's going to look like in the future, that kind of thing. That is one thing, and I think that's the thing I would love to focus on in public comment, right? Like, oh, you really need to, there should be zero rear yard setbacks everywhere, whatever it might be, right? That kind of comment. I think if people have a request that their zoning get changed on property that they own, that should be done in a written format, send an email, send a letter. Yeah, and not discussed at a public hearing, because I think she's right. I'm kind of thinking about all the ways people may want to comment on this, and if it's about their property, that just tell us, and then we can look at that at a public meeting and have that discussion publicly.
Yeah, can I make a comment, Mr. Ferris, and then I'll let you go? Something that's on my mind, Jackie, is I think we've had a great discussion about this tonight, but I also sense coming into this that you had a plan that fit onto this piece of paper. And now we've got a bunch of scrap pieces of paper, not speaking to your organization, speaking to my way of thinking about this, but we now have a lot of notes about how we want to handle this. And I think my proposal would be that we have an executive session either later this week or next week to meet a small group of us and help formulate a plan of how we think we should move this forward that we could then bring back to the administrative meeting in August.
So an executive meeting, not an executive session. An
Correct.
Executive committee meeting, not an executive.
Correct, thank you.
I was just going to say that. Sorry. Okay.
So that would
I
be
can get
my
that scheduled.
recommendation on one
Okay.
option for moving forward. And Mr. Ferris, I know you had a comment.
I was going to suggest, whether you can do it or not, is that if people have comments, they provide written comments in advance. And so you would not necessarily having people walking up to the podium here and saying, I have a question on the following. If you take and have the questions in advance, you can group them. And therefore, from a staff perspective, you can address the grouping instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I would suggest if you can do it, publishing the fact that there is going to be a hearing, but written comments need to be provided in advance.
We will be putting that in the notice that's going to go out on the postcard, which I'll share the language with you all before that gets sent. I just want to remind everyone knows this, public hearings, people are able to come up and speak about whatever topic they would like to speak on. We will try to organize them. We will try to encourage prior to the public hearings that they submit in some format that we can then speed up some of these discussions or make sure that individual zoning map changes we can kind of address separately. I like those ideas, but we won't be able to prevent people from speaking. We have to make sure we.
And then what I would do is I would take, and from your presentation standpoint, instead of opening up the whole 400-page document, well, we're first going to talk about this group first, this section.
Mhm.
Okay, then this section, and then this section. And that way you can keep the thought process going on what the response might be from the people here sitting on the Plan Commission.
Okay.
Just one last thing, and I guess where my thoughts are is if we're going to try to accommodate something to allow property owners talk about their individual property, I think it might be interesting to see if we could maybe reserve the council's meeting room and have a planner there so we can then direct them and they can sit. I was speaking with someone earlier today that was dealing with a utility easement. And until we went through a number of different questions, they didn't really know what question they were actually going to ask. And I think we need to think about that. Some members of the public are going to come here and kind of want general questions answered, so then they can maybe ask a question that's relevant to their property or concerns. So I just wanted to make that comment that some people don't really know what they're really trying to figure out until they have a series of questions answered, and then they have a more pointed question. But I think we can try to kind of separate some of this as long as we have another meeting going on where there are planners that are informed that can address members of the public's comments, and maybe we could just really advertise, come here for general questions, and then, they can then come up here and make a public comment during our official meeting. That's just me kind of thinking out loud about how maybe we can incorporate some of what I heard today. So I'll leave it there.
All right. So I will suggest that I work with you all, and possibly our office manager may be giving you a call, or I might be sending an email trying to figure out some calendar dates if we are going to be condensing some of those CDO meetings back to back. We'll have to confirm that the Nat U Hill room is available for those hearings, but we will hold off on voting on the changes to the meeting calendar for now, based on your feedback. Okay, so next is the CDO survey, and that's starting on page 7. So I'm going to go through this as we would at an administrative meeting, but feel free to chime in if you have questions. So this is the last of the CDO surveys. I want to just bring up, piggybacking on the conversations that we've had, I do think that staff has spent a significant amount of time working with the public. So we're hopeful that when people get these notices, they'll check the map, check the text, and say, I'm okay with these changes. I'm understanding these changes. I've been able to speak with somebody, or, they'll feel okay about the change. So this is the last of the 250 plus surveys that we've been able to go through individually. This report's a little bit different in that I wanted to bring up 3 common themes that came out of these surveys that weren't necessarily tied to individual addresses. So the first was discussion about tourist homes. Second is a discussion about the change in the environmental constraints overlay area, changing that from the designation of agricultural rural reserve to conservation residential 2.5 zoning district. And then there were also questions regarding just density and the importance of allowing different housing types that I've put into the packet. So beginning with the tourist home discussion, I'm bringing this back to you all as a discussion point. We received a petition letter from owners in a subdivision in the county with concerns about how, if their zoning were to be changed, that it would now allow conditionally permissions for tourist home / cabin and as well as other short-term rentals. So as the ordinance is currently drafted, it would allow permitted with standards short-term rental owner occupied. So we're thinking if someone had an individual bedroom in their home while they were residing there that they wanted to rent out, that would be permitted with standards. A tourist home cabin is more similar to an Airbnb where the owner is not present. They're gone for an extended period of time and they can rent out for a weekend or what have you, their residence, and they would not be present during that time. And then bed and breakfast is typically either owner or operator occupied, where breakfast is served. So those are the three short-term rental options. And when I say short-term rental, I mean less than 30 days. Those are the three options under the draft of the zoning map. So we are consolidating 3 zones into the residential 1 zone that you see on the screen. That includes estate residential 1, and suburban residential, which comprises of 13,325 acres in the county. And so currently the short-term rental owner occupied is going to be a brand new use. So it's really difficult to compare with how it's currently drafted or how it's currently administered because it's not a permitted use in the ordinance. Tourist home or cabin is conditional in one of those 3 zones and not permitted in the other 2. And then bed and breakfast is permitted with standards in one of the zones, conditional in one of the zones, and not permitted in the 3rd zone. So the draft would actually be opening up more properties for these 3 different uses. So I did include the petition letter as well as just the location of the subdivision in which we received that petition letter with concerns and signatures. And I wanted to bring forward just a few options that planning staff discussed that maybe you would ask us to consider putting into the draft or if we would like further discussions. But before I do that, there was a discussion about how many tourist homes in the cabin do we have? I think that the main concern by residents is the tourist home / cabin. When we speak with people, the owner occupied is not of concern as much. The bed and breakfast is not of concern as much, but the tourist home / cabins where the owner or operator is just not on the premises and there are issues with noise, people, just being loud and not great neighbors. That's the concern that we've typically received in our office. So we reached out to the Visit Bloomington organization, and they let us know that there are 660 short-term rentals in all of Monroe County as of June 2024. Unfortunately, this isn't separated out by the town of Ellettsville, city of Bloomington, and Monroe County. So that's just a aggregate number for the entire county. But that was some information that we wanted to provide you with. In the month of June, 660 tourist homes existed. So going back to some of the options that we would like to discuss with you, we could remove tourist home / cabin as a use in the residential 1 zone or altogether. Since this petition is coming from a subdivision, in particular to this situation, that has protective covenants, we could say that we're proposing no change to the residential 1 zone or add conditions to the conditional use standard, saying that if there are covenants and restrictions that conflict with the new tourist home or cabin, that they would not meet the conditions. So essentially exclude that specific subdivision from being able to have a lot in there that could be used as a tourist home or cabin. We also received one additional letter of, I guess you could call it remonstrance. And I believe that is, that was in the packet as a link. But I do want to point your attention to that. And there was some information that they provided just in support of actually eliminating tourist home or cabins. So that was additional information since the last meeting. Does anyone have any questions, or would you like to
Yeah,
discuss this
I
further?
do.
Yes.
I think number 2 and 3 are basically the same response. It puts the onus back on the property owners. If they already have covenants and restrictions, I like the idea of saying, let's specifically state in the language, this is a conditional use subject to the covenants and restrictions of neighborhoods established at this time or prior to. No, covenants and restrictions are not the same thing as an HOA.
Explain the difference. HOA has covenants. What are you talking about?
Covenants and restrictions are when you purchase a house or when you purchase a lot in a subdivision attached to the deed of the plat that comes with that. It says these are the restrictions agreed to when this plat was filed with the county. Enforcement of covenants and restrictions is a civil matter. The use of your property in terms of how it affects your neighbors is a civil matter in this area. It is not a zoning matter. Okay? There are, in my opinion, there are instances where we can all agree that zoning should restrict where someone can put a shed, should be allowed to put a shed right up against the property line. You know, things that we universally agree. This is not a situation where you can find universal agreement that people would say, no, it's not right to rent your house out in a subdivision. And for this reason, subdivisions have for years specifically said, when we file this plat, these are the things that we do not want to see in our neighborhood. Enforcement there falls on the neighbors. I can remember when we were redoing zoning ordinances a long time ago, people were like, well, can you keep people from parking in your yards? Yeah, if you want to live in the city of Bloomington or a city where they do that, we don't restrict parking in the county like that. That is not a function of the county. People live out in the county so they can have an acre or more and say, I'll park my car wherever I please. And if the neighbors don't like it, that's their problem, you know? So, and I'm preaching here and I'm sorry, but this is one of those instances where if we go down this road of responding by saying, well, screw it, there are no tourist rentals available in the county by statute, we've just offended entrepreneurship. We've offended people who've already gone down this road. And we had a tremendous swelling of support for the tourist home log on when we first put this in. That's why it even exists. Okay, so now to say, well, we want to bring that tide back in, no, this is where it belongs. I think that number 3 is probably the cleanest, most convenient way to simply state in the conditional use standard that we recognize that this conditional use is permissible only in areas where it has not explicitly been prohibited by the covenants and deed restrictions of a subdivision filed as a plat with this county.
All I was saying is that when I purchased my home and I got my deed, the covenants are actually attached to that deed.
Right.
Yeah, so
right.
That's why I'm saying
They
that
should be.
the covenants are the ones to dictate what happens within the neighborhood, which are managed by the HOA. That's all.
You don't have to have a HOA to have, okay, my property, which I developed, says you can't have chickens. Okay, I don't know why. The people we developed with didn't like chickens. My neighbor has chickens. If I wanted to file civil suit against him to get the chickens out of there because we had agreed when we filed this plat that there'd be no chickens there, then I have that right. But I happen to not mind the chickens, and it's nice to have fresh eggs once in a while. So they're only enforceable. The HOA can't enforce it without going to civil court.
I think the question for me is how large the property needs to be. Because this can be incredibly disruptive to neighbors to have new people coming in for a party house every weekend. I'm concerned about that, but I'm also really concerned, especially after seeing what was discovered within the city of Bloomington and how many Airbnbs there are and how that prevents people from finding housing because people are doing this. And I get, it's capitalism, whatever. If y'all want me to find it again, I saw a really interesting article about San Diego and
Austin, Texas is the same.
how many Airbnbs are in San Diego to the point they don't have housing. And I think we're in the same boat.
We're going there.
And I don't want to go there. So I think we can continue to look at this in terms of the space, but I agree that it always should be contingent on fitting with the covenant or homeowners association.
And Ms. Owens, I see your hand has been raised for a while. Thanks for your patience.
No problem. I just wanted to say pretty much what Julie said. We have to be careful that we don't give it all away to tourist homes, especially considering the university and all the stuff that we have here. But we need to honor the covenants that people have with their properties. If they want to, as Jerry pointed out with chickens, if they want to have chickens, then they can have chickens, but that's their problem. It should not be a county problem, one that we put on them.
Also
To
has a
Commissioner
comment.
Thomas's concern, I'm afraid the size of the lot may not be a tall enough barrier to prevent the purchase of properties.
I'm just saying that for the neighbors. That has
Right.
nothing to do with the capitalist
the
side of
other
it.
issue. All right.
I'm just talking about it in terms of the neighbors and
Right.
the complaints we get, because we do get those.
Yeah, well, with the minimum of 1 acre, it is possible that people are fairly close together, but an acre is a fairly generous lot size. So I am comfortable proposing that rather than throw this whole thing out at this time, that we simply move forward with investigation into the proper legal restrictions. The proper language for an amendment to the conditional use stating that the conditional use can never run contrary to the covenants and restrictions already established.
Yeah, I would just make a comment on that. There's a recent case out of the city of Bloomington called, I think it was a UJ80, where the claim was that the city had delegated zoning authority to the university. And they found that they hadn't in that case, but this covenant situation is something that needs some study, because essentially you're saying that people can, by covenant, decide what land uses are available, and that could change month to month. I mean, if you get a different vote from the homeowners association or whatever, they can change their covenants. So it's kind of a tricky situation. So that needs some more study.
I think it'd be interesting to see what you find.
Yeah.
I really do. And you raise a really interesting point, because you're right, it could change. It's not just a covenant, it's a homeowners association, and that could change. And it has to do with livestock and bonfires and all kinds of things, not just Airbnbs, what we call tourist cabins, but
You always have a standard. And that standard could be the limiting of 4 or 5 things, whatever you think those things are, they'll apply to everybody.
Mr. Ferris, you might not be being caught as far as for others to hear.
I was just saying, it needs a legal review. Okay. but
There are standards that are in the packet there.
I'm just saying that to get away from people abusing the change in HOA or the covenants because of new people coming in the neighborhood. We actually went through this in my neighborhood, so I have a little bit of experience here. It's a very painful process to get people to agree on changes to covenants. And it also is very expensive when you bring in the lawyers. And we did have somebody want to put a chicken coop in their backyard, and of course that person was sued by another person in the neighborhood. So again, another painful process involving everybody in the neighborhood. But if you had an overarching standard from a county perspective, that as a minimum these things had to be met with, and then on top of that you'd have to with the HOA and the covenants in addition to, that would be a way to work through that.
But we have those. Those exist.
So my thoughts, if I was kind of abiding my time, I think there's a good opportunity here to keep them in all zones, and kind of to Jerry's point that we shouldn't prohibit them. But I do think we need to figure out a good balance. I don't think we should ever have anything that supersedes a covenant, even if we have any legal standing to do that. I think Dave's point's absolutely right. We don't want to create these little pockets where they get to kind of dictate their own use. I just feel like I have to say this, the analogy of, good fences make good neighbors, people think about that, and I've been wrong for a long time that it's because it creates a separation between the two properties. No, that's a historical term because the two neighbors came together and helped build that one fence. So I think we're kind of, touching on that topic. And I think if we look at things as far as density, within this area, we can't have X amount of density that are these cabins, tourist homes. I think that's a way that the county can still regulate it, but still provide those neighborhoods the ability to put in covenances. So like, if a particular subdivision is hitting like 50% of tourist home cabin use, then maybe that gives the county some ability to come in there and address that situation, because we still need to have an ordinance that we can enforce if we start moving in that direction. So I'm going to kind of pause there because I think there are a lot of different places across the country that we can glean some insight, and I also think that planning's working to figure out a good balance. And but those are my comments.
If I might, not as a rebuttal, but just as additional thoughts, and due respect to Mr. Schilling's comment, which really involves the whole concept of covenants and restrictions as a legal issue. And while germane to log cabins or rental cabins, in this instance, rather, I should say, tourist home or cabin, that is a much larger issue. We have already gone down the road of tourist home and cabin, and that's why we have that as a use, both permitted and conditional in the county. And I think the county has long filed plats with covenants and restrictions. That's not new either. And the question as to whether or not, are we creating the Wild West of tourist homes and cabins and Airbnbs? No, this provision has existed for 10 years, probably close to that, if not that long. And the requirements for that, we even went to the extent of looking at the requirements by state statute for rental properties. Smoke detectors and fire extinguishers shall be installed and maintained in working order in all tourist homes and cabins. We went through, this was not a spontaneous decision made, people want tourist cabins, let's let them have them. This exemplifies the process that we went through. And if neighborhoods don't want them in their neighborhoods and they have covenants and restrictions, then enforce them. Okay, enforce them. If they want to protect their property values by use of covenants and restrictions, which is what they're there for, then use them. The county can't get in the business of saying, well, we'll just exclude everything that might possibly offend a neighbor. And by the way, Tron, with good fences make good neighbors doesn't mean what you think it means in Robert Frost's poem Mending Wall.
No, it doesn't.
I guess I'm curious if the tourist home definition was created before Airbnb and other online sites became
Before
popular.
it was a phenomenon, yes.
I think that may be the difference that I see today is it's so easy to sign up with Airbnb. Seeing that there's 600 and some houses available for rent, I agree with Commissioner Thomas's comment that that's a lot of houses that could be on the market for people that are looking for a house. That's a pretty substantial percentage. So I'm not advocating that we, abolish Airbnb opportunities, but it's just something that is on my mind.
I do want to keep us moving because I do have a lot of changes at the end, individual property changes, though I do appreciate this discussion. I'm happy to, if there's a consensus, it sounds like CCRs are amenable. If it's okay by legal that we add in that condition, but we do have conditions on page 15 and 16 of the packet, and if people can take a look at those and see if you'd like to make changes to those or add to those will be in the final document of the CDO as well. I can move on to the next big picture discussion. I will point you to page 19 of the packet. There was a concern about the change from agriculture rural reserve to conservation residential 2.5. And we have 4 rows of CDO survey feedback, and I just wanted to point your attention to that. There are some people in the county that would prefer a certain naming convention for their zoning district, and so we have communicated that the importance of the change from agricultural rural reserve to conservation residential is because of the land animal related agricultural uses. And we did go through and actually on the draft of the CDO, if you'll look at page 21, those highlighted uses are actually permitted in the AGR, the agricultural zoning district. And then on page 22 is the CVR, conservation residential 2.5 district. The difference is that the ag district actually allows more uses than the conservation residential district. And so I believe that would be helpful. And I'll share this with the folks that submitted the CDO survey for them to see it with the latest draft, because I actually think it's going to be more protective of the things they're most concerned about. So, okay. And then on page 23 through page 24, these were not survey feedback results associated with an exact address. Again, they were proponents or just offering comments on specific to density or offering different housing types under the CDO. So these were the comments that we received for you to review as well. And with that, I would like to go through the ORC's recommendation for the last few properties in the county that are specific to requesting different changes. So I will start with West Shaw Road. I'm going to take these first 3 together. The proposed zoning district is limited business, and they would still be maintaining limited business, but the applicant preferred zoning is general business. And then the ORC had a mix of recommendations for the first one, but recommended limited business for the other 2. So I will go ahead and scroll through these. So, this is part of the West Shaw Road near the Monroe Medical Hospital here. And it's currently zoned limited business, and in the draft zoning map would remain limited business. So that was this parcel that's employment under the comprehensive plan, relatively buildable. And then this parcel, which is right next to the parcel we were just reviewing, which is a utility right now, utility substation. Again, employment district, buildable, it's already built out. And then the last parcel, which is combined, is actually split zone between general business and limited business, which is this parcel here, and has access off of Rockport, and also has a requirement to stub in from the road to the northwest. So the recommendation by the Ordinance Review Committee for the parcels to the west where my cursor is to maintain limited business zoning. And then there was a three different recommendations by the ORC for this parcel where my cursor is, which is one is to keep the split zoning between general business and limited business. Another vote was to change it to all one zoning district to be general business. And then the third recommendation was to change it all to one zoning district, but have it be limited business. I can take any questions.
Is there a significant loss in use that happens going to limited business, and that's why they prefer general business?
General business does have a lot more uses.
I was assuming.
Yes. I'm trying to think if there's, I don't think I included the 2-pager for general business and limited business,
That's okay. Don't do
Okay.
that, because that's good. Giving way more detail than what I am really requesting. I just wondered, in general, if there's a difference. And looking at the existing infrastructure there, is it a legitimate argument for limited business over general business because of infrastructure restrictions?
Well, I will say that I think that the way it's currently zoned right now is what the proposed zoning map is suggesting. The reason for limited business, I believe, in this area is because it is buffered on one or both sides by residential. And so typically we do see limited business as a buffer before you get to general business, or usually you don't see general business abutting residential. But I will mention that with the connection requirement of this road down to Rockport Road, unless they receive approval through the Plan Commission to make that change, that's a pretty substantive improvement that will be pretty costly, and possibly general business would offer more uses that could support that level of infrastructure installment.
Well, and then that then leads into my observation about the existing acreage. These are not small lots when you're considering the classification for the usage. 5.59 acres, 2.78 acres, 3.77 acres are pretty good sized pieces of property to be classified as limited business if infrastructure would support more intense uses. And that's where my thoughts arise. If at some point infrastructure supported it, I think a petition for rezone would be appropriate. But for right now, maybe what we're looking at is the best placeholder is the limited business, and let them make a case for general business sometime in the future.
Would that, just to clarify, would that include a recommendation or a thought process on this parcel where my cursor is right here, remaining as it's currently zoned, which is split zone general business on the side of the interstate and then limited business on this side?
Yes, because
Okay.
I think that's a great bellwether to see if general business would actually go there.
Okay. Is that a motion?
It is.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay. So it's been moved and seconded to keep the current zoning map the same under the CDO. So that would include the parcels, the first two Shaw Road parcels staying at limited business, and then the third parcel maintaining its split zoning designation between general business and limited business as shown on the zoning map. I will go ahead and call the roll. A vote yes is to vote in favor of the current zoning remaining the same. Tron Enright Randolph?
I think you covered it. I just want to be certain. So we're saying we're keeping the split zoning there.
Yes.
Okay. And all cards on the table, I was the one recommending general business. Basically, I wanted to get rid of the split zone. I would almost been more amenable to the light business. I still want to get rid of the split zone, but I think Mr. Pittsburgh is correct that it would be a good indicator to see if it would fit right. I just wanted to explain my clarification question. I'm going to Vote no.
Okay, Scott Ferris,
No.
Jeff Morris,
Yes.
Cheryl Munson,
Yes.
Dee Owens,
Yes.
Jerry Pittsford,
Well, my confidence is shaken because Tron voted against my motion, but I'm going to go ahead and vote yes.
Julie Thomas.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion does pass 5-2.
It's a good medium.
The next parcel in question is 6570 South Old State Road 37. This is a property that has access off of Dillman as well as South Old State Road 37. Its current zoning is agriculture rural reserve. There is a little bit of history here in that it attempted a rezone in 2019 to light industrial, but was withdrawn before an official decision was made. The survey comment was that this parcel is surrounded by numerous businesses. Over the course of 50+ years, our farm has had large pieces taken by eminent domain for Highway 37, a sewage plant, gas main, power lines, and substation. The best use is not ag or residential. And then there was an added comment that with easements, setbacks, slope, and floodplain, we have only 3.96 acres of usable area. We are thinking limited business based on what we can make of the new zoning. So they do have 20.21 acres total, though. So this is the proposed zoning map showing them as agriculture residential 2.5. Surrounding them in the proposed zoning map is limited business, as well as residential and light industrial across the road. And also across the interstate, then industrial. Under the comprehensive plan, you have the open space designation following the floodplain, as well as the employment district. And then this is the environmental constraints. The yellow area is the floodway, which is the most restrictive of all of the floodplain designations. And then there's also other designations as well, some slopes, and then to the south is the developable portion of the property.
Is that a power transfer station there right next to him too?
There is.
Yes.
I know this area.
Not suitable for housing.
No.
And then they also submitted a letter similar to their comment in the survey, but that's on page 30, and just kind of elaborating that there are 11 easements on the parcel, 3.95 acres of usable area, and that there are varying businesses surrounding the property. So their request is that they would like this property to be zoned as general business. So the ORC recommendation was to actually change it to limited business, and that was a vote of 3-0. Questions?
I don't want to jump in front of any questions, but if I don't hear any, I'm willing to support the ORC. Okay, I guess that's a motion then.
There's a move and a second to change the zoning to limited business. A vote yes is a vote to vote in favor of changing it to limited business on the zoning map. Scott Ferris,
Yes.
Jeff Morris,
Yes.
Cheryl Munson,
Yes.
Dee Owens,
Yes.
Jerry Pittsford,
Yes.
Julie Thomas,
Yes.
Tron Enright Randolph.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 7-0. Right. The next property is 4695 North Ridgewood Drive. This is a parcel that is proposed zone is low development residential, but the existing zoning is actually limited business. So we'll go ahead and show the zoning maps for this one. This is Ridgewood Drive, and then you have West State Road 46 to the north. So the current zoning is limited business for these 3 parcels up towards West State Road 46, and then it is surrounded by currently medium density residential zoning. We had it in the zoning draft that this would become low development residential, largely because each of these parcels appear to be utilized as single family residences. And then the comp plan has this area as part of the designated community of Ellettsville. The floodway is also present on this parcel, and it's mostly to the south. And then there are environmental constraints. This is part of the Jackstafeet Creek drainage area. So the petitioner actually reached out in the survey to ask to remain limited business, though this makes the current home site pre-existing non-conforming and would continue the site as pre-existing non-conforming. They stated that the property was purchased due to limited business zoning, and the zoning would change the marketability as anticipated when purchased. So we are considering this request, and I think I mentioned this, but the ORC voted on this one to change it back to limited business 3-0.
Make a motion. Limited business.
Second.
Okay, vote to change it to limited business as the existing zoning is for 4695 North Ridgewood Drive. Vote yes is a vote to change it to limited business. Jeff Morris?
Yes.
Cheryl Munson?
Yes.
Dee Owens?
Yes.
Jerry Pittsford?
Sure.
Julie Thomas? Tron Enright Randolph?
Yes.
Scott Ferris?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 7-0. The next parcel in question is 5065 West Vernal Pike. The proposed zoning here is agricultural residential 2.5, as well as the existing zoning. And the applicant would prefer that the zoning be changed to light industrial. The ORC, however, voted to keep it at agricultural residential by a vote of 3-0. So this parcel is located in the employment district. The proposed zoning, as I mentioned, is agricultural residential. Directly to the east is light industrial, as well as to the north and to the south. It's currently used as for residential / agricultural purposes. It's 9.78 acres. The survey comment that was not filled out by the owner states it should be light industrial. And the comment later subsequently filed by the owner is that light industrial almost surrounds the property, sewers near the front. The comp plan recommends employment, and they believe that they would be able to hook on to sewer if, I believe, the context is if they were zoned industrial. They are also part of the critical drainage area for Jackstafeet, and there is some presence of karst features on the property.
I'll mention that this was kind of a more difficult one. I could have probably been persuaded either way, and the Makua employment thing was, something I was trying to grapple with. But since I sit on the ORC, I just wanted to indicate that.
The turn for me on the ORC was the number of karst features, and I think that with the limited acreage and the karst features, I'm not sure what you can do with this property. So, but they can, any of these, the owner of the property can come and ask for a rezone. So it's, I don't know, just want to add that in there. It's not, this isn't forever, this is for now.
And that's basically where I was able to side with the other two members and have a 3-0. But I just, again, that's where I was.
Yeah, I think I leaned to the comment about if the petitioner wants to come forward with a plan that required light industrial or limited business, then they could do so. But I feel, with the limited knowledge that I have on this, that we should keep it Ag 2.5 as it is today. And then if somebody wants to come forward with a plan, we can revisit it.
Is that a motion?
Sure.
Second.
All right, it's been motioned, seconded to leave the draft zoning map as agricultural residential 2.5. A vote yes is a vote to keep it as Ag 2.5.
Can I ask a question real quickly before we do this? Is this a subterranean home?
Subterranean home.
Is most of this house a north home?
Underneath.
I'm not sure. I can check that.
I don't think you can, I think most of it's in the ground.
Underground. Okay.
I think it was designed that way. So,
Okay.
which was probably for a reason. But anyway, thank you.
Okay. I'll call the roll. Cheryl Munson,
Yes.
Dee Owens,
Yes.
Jerry Pittsford,
Uh, I can't support that because it's in the McCoy, and I think everything that's in the McCoy is supposed to move toward employment, and therefore I can't do that. It's in the McCoy as employment. I mean, thank you.
Julie
So no.
Thomas,
Yes.
Tron Enright Randolph,
It doesn't really matter. Am I the last vote?
No.
I really agree with that, the Makua employment thing. That's what was so hard, but I'll stay where I was and vote yes.
Scott Ferris,
Yes.
Jeff Morris.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 6-1.
When you see Makua, it doesn't have to be light industrial. It could be heavy industrial, it could be limited business, it could be general business. So just keep that in mind.
But not residential.
Unless it's a cabin home.
Unless it's a
This
word.
is the next one, so we have 3 more to go. 8682 East State Road 45. The proposed zoning is conservation residential 2.5. The existing zoning is agricultural rural reserve, also in the eco area. That would remain the same. The applicant preferred zoning is actually forest reserve. They would like it to change from a 2.5 acre minimum to a 5 acre minimum. And the ORC recommended that it move to the forest 5 designation, forest reserve 5, by a vote of 2-0 to 1. So this is the parcel in question here. It's in the Farm and Forest Comprehensive Plan, the 2012 plan. It's in the Area 3 of the Environmental Constraints Overlay, and this is the buildable area. It's accessible and buildable on the west side. It's currently built out with the residents. I'll also mention that it is 5.21 acres, so it would meet the minimum requirement for the Forest Reserve zoning district.
I'm just going to make a motion to change this to Forest Reserve 5.0.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to change the zoning designation to Forest Residential 5. A vote yes is a vote to change it. Dee Owens,
Yes.
Jerry Pittsford,
Yes.
Julie Thomas,
Yes.
Tron Enright Randolph,
Sorry, I was the one that recused themselves. Since I'm going to vote yes to support the property owner's request.
Scott Ferris,
Yes.
Jeff Morris,
Yes.
Cheryl Munson.
Yes.
Okay, motion is approved 7-0. Next, we have 453 West Keller Crossing. The existing zoning designation is limited industrial, and the applicant preferred zoning is agricultural residential. This did not have a recommendation by the Ordinance Review Committee, but rather that we try to have a discussion with neighbors. Do we still want to make a vote on this, or do we want to wait for staff to send out notice and to have a discussion with neighbors?
Neighbors,
Neighbors?
I think.
Okay, we will do that.
Recommendation, talk to name.
The last one that we have then on the agenda is 9271 South Harrodsburg Road. The proposed zoning district is the same as the existing zoning, which is limited business, but the applicant preferred zoning and the ORC recommendation was rural neighborhood. So I will discuss that one. So this is in Harrodsburg. The parcels in question are highlighted on the screen. It's currently utilized as a single-family residence, and the site is 0.76 acres. The survey comment from the property owner is that they believe their property should be rural neighborhood because there's a pre-existing home on the property that could also have a home-based business. So limited business would not allow for a residence and a home-based business. It would be more oriented towards having a business use as the principal use. And then the proposed zoning, again, this is a limited business section of Harrodsburg surrounded by rural neighborhood on all sides. It is all part of the designated community area for Harrodsburg, and it's buildable, but it's already built out. Any questions on this one? Okay.
I'll move that we go with RNH as recommended by the ORC.
Second.
Okay. Vote yes is to change it to rural neighborhood. Jerry Pittsford,
Yes.
Julie Thomas,
Yes.
Tron Enright Randolph,
Yes.
Scott Ferris,
Yes.
Jeff Morris,
Yes.
Cheryl Munson,
Yes.
Dee Owens.
Yes.
Okay, motion is approved 7-0. All right, thank you all for
Well, I know the property.
consolidating two meetings into one. Appreciate your
you.
time tonight. I do not have anything further.
We have a motion for adjournment.
Oh,
So moved.
this
Thank
is
you
an
all.
hour earlier than I thought we would. Thank you.
Oh, that's.
But
Thank you.
So we call for adjournment?